Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday series. This week, I am joined by the incredible Neville Wright. Thank you so much for joining me, Neville. Now, for anyone who doesn't know this man, where have you been? Neville started off as a dyslexic schoolboy, bullied through school, made to believe he was stupid. He went through 17 jobs before finally retiring at the age of 24, and he's not worked a day since. Now, from a standing start, Neville and his wife Marilyn have actually went on to build the largest independent nursery retailer in the UK, Kiddie Care, which most of you will have heard of. Now, Neville and Marilyn actually sold Kiddie Care in 2011 for a whopping 70 million. For all those property connections out there, there's one hell of a story to tell, because Neville and his wife Marilyn actually have a portfolio worth over 100 million. And although most of you may know him for Kiddie Care, it all started by it was all a bit of a happy mistake, which we'll be delving into. So firstly, thank you so much for joining me, and happy Sunday, Neville.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and cheers. Thank you. Thank you. And you said just before we came on air, are you ready? Well, I was born ready. I was. Yeah, it's been chaos today. So we've just with a minute to spare, I think. So that's been my life, really. Just because I describe it in my book. I describe it as by the skin of your teeth, a series of mishaps and adventure by the skin of our teeth. And that's very near to home, really, that is. So, yeah, what did you want to speak about tonight? Oh, well, and thank you very much for the introduction. I didn't know who you was talking about.
Yeah, I suppose when you must look back at your own achievements sometimes, it must be bizarre. But before we go into all the success you've had and all the business stuff, I want to start off with probably the most important thing, I believe. I just wanted to congratulate you and your lovely wife, Marilyn, for your 50-year anniversary, which you were celebrating last year.
Thank you.
Sorry, last weekend, not last year.
That's right. We will be celebrating next year, and it'll be 51, obviously, because the venue has closed for the year, as a lot of venues are, and that was very disappointing. So I've got another year to save up for it.
I love that. Many a true words said in jest as well. But you talk about this really openly in your book, and I think like the day that you described that changed everything is 1966, when you were only 15 years old and you met Marilyn. And you know, your business successes and failures along the way, we'll be going into all of that, but your credentials, you know, more than speak for themselves. But one of the things that you've said before that really resonated with me is you refer to, it's okay climbing the ladder, but if you're not working on, if you don't have the wall to lean the ladder against, then it's kind of, it becomes for nothing. And success has always been about so much more to you than just financial, hasn't it? So can you talk us through a little bit about when you first met Marilyn and how that came about?
One Saturday afternoon, the 25th of June, 1966, there's a knock on the door, and there was 3 girls there. 2 of them I knew, and then there was a friend. Anyway, this they came in for a couple of hours in the afternoon, and my mum, she went to the door actually, and she called me. She said, "Neville, there's 3 girls here. You be careful what you get up to." I was 16, yes, just 16. And anyway, apparently I met one of the other girls a week later, and she said to me, "My mother says I can't see you anymore because you're 16, and I think she was about 14 or 15. And she says, "But Marilyn likes you." And I go, "Who's Marilyn?" And she said, "The girl who we brought to look at you." And she never spoke to me and I thought she was gorgeous, and but she never spoke to me, and that was it. So I said, where does she live? And she told me, and I got on my motor scooter and went to her house, and that was it. So yeah, so 1966 that was, and within 6 weeks we decided, well, that was it. You know, that was going to be our lives. So we made our goals, which were to buy a house, to get married, and to have a family. So they were our goals. I mean, one of the goals apart from that was to be, which came along later, was to be financially, shall we say, independent, financially free. Because Marilyn's parents had gone through an horrendous time. They took on a bakery which belonged to her granddad just as it was failing, and her dad had a nervous breakdown in 1953 and was hospitalized, and so that set the scene for the family with all, you know, with the problems. And in those days Marilyn was very, very shy and timid, and she was brought up in the world of children should be seen but definitely not heard, and if they were heard, a good smacking will put paid to that. And so there was a, you know, she was a vulnerable girl, and which I fancied anyway, you know, and but I didn't realize this. It all came out, and I didn't know at the time I was dyslexic and had ADHD. I just thought I was like what the school teachers said, you know, I was thick and I was stupid. And so a real good change happened to me, because Marilyn was the first person that I can ever remember in my life that didn't think I was stupid or thick. And you know, that was a good impression on me, that was, and I wanted to help her, and in turn, obviously, it's like marriage. Well, it is a marriage, you know, and that was it. So we started off very young. We did.
You did, but I've heard you refer to as well. You actually set another goal, which which you don't mention as much. But it took 8 years for it to come into fruition. But it was actually to work together, and you never quite knew what form that would take. But you always knew you wanted to do it. And when I heard that, it just really resonated, because I work with my husband, and my husband Mark, who you were just chatting to, and for years he's had a business for the last 10 years, whereas I've always been an employee, and we've always had such opposing skill sets that we've said if we could combine those skill sets, we make a great team. But we never really knew how that would take form. And it's only the last 2 years that we're able to sort of live that out. And when I heard you said the exact same thing with Marilyn, from the 6-week mark, you'd said, we want the house, we want to get married, we want to start a family, and we want to work together. I thought, it's amazing. And you've also mentioned in your book that you guys both, unbeknownst to each other, you used to write each other little notes, didn't you? And you've both kept those notes all those years, for all these years.
I've still got them in there.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. So that is pretty much true. The only thing that isn't, and I suppose I've never told anybody before, when I say we was young and we wanted to work together, I didn't really mean that. I really meant we wanted to be together. Work didn't come into it, because I'd have a job for a few weeks, and then I'd leave. And in the 60s and 70s, you leave a job in the morning and get one in the afternoon, because I'd start off enthusiastic. I'd probably work my way up to be responsible for something or other pretty quick. And then, of course, you have to fill forms in, and the diary needs filling in. I couldn't do it because I couldn't read or write. But so the thing was, we didn't really want to work. We didn't. What we wanted to do was we wanted to win the premium bonds. And in those days, if you won the premium bonds and you got £25,000, then you would, I just sort that out. Then what you'd do, you'd live forever on the £25,000. So work didn't come into it. Really didn't want to work, and I suppose that's a good thing, because I wasn't very good at work. I did learn things in the 17 jobs. I didn't think I'd learn anything, but I did learn things in the 17 jobs I had. And I didn't realise that until I became self-employed over the next couple of years and realised just how much I had learned there. But we wanted to be together, and we hadn't got a clue how we could make a living with our skill sets, because it was like zero. Marilyn was a hairdresser, and like with these hands, they was too big to be a hairdresser, I think. And so that was it. And it wasn't until 1974 when we was living in a 10-foot caravan in the winter of 73, 74, and the recession came, and I got fired. As expected. And when you've got 1 million people unemployed, and so we say 900,000 of them can read and write, what hope had I got? Although I'd got the gift of the gab of getting a job, I was on the bottom of the pile when it come to filling the application forms in. So I got away with it for a long, long time in saying, I've forgot my glasses to the secretary, would you fill it in for me? And stuff like that, you know, and so I couldn't get a job, basically.
But to rewind a little bit, because I remember you and Marilyn had first made inquiries about getting your own place back when you were 16. And I've heard you describe it was the first time you'd ever heard a man in a suit swearing. He pretty much told you to fuck off, that you'd never get a mortgage.
You haven't got a fucking chance.
do you think, like, because to hear that at 16, and you guys even then, you know, you were so entrepreneurial, you'd set your sights quite high on like a new build bungalow, and you thought, okay, we need to go back now, we need to save up from scratch, we need to lower our expectations, and we need to buy a property like outright, which you guys did, didn't you?
We did. It was the thing is, when somebody says something to you like that you don't stand an effing chance, you'll never. You know, it reminded me of the school days, right? You'll never amount to anything in your life, right? Because you see, they had got one curriculum and it didn't fit me. You know, if they had several curriculums for different types of kids, I would have been all right. But they didn't have a curriculum for me. They had only one, and I didn't fit. So so we went out of that like estate agents. And we was sad and angry. And I've noticed this through my life. If you get to a certain pitch and you're sad and angry at the same time because of the situation, your back's against the wall, and you look, well, I look at it in different ways. Reverse psychology. I say in my book, first page, just be careful, look out for the reverse psychology. And it's like, okay, I believe him. I will never get a place because I'm not earning enough money to get a mortgage. So I will go to the opposite end of the scale and get something that I can afford. So therefore, Marilyn was getting £3.75 a week, and as an apprentice hairdresser. And we lived with our parents separate, because in those days you couldn't live together. Although we would have liked to, but we couldn't do that, and we couldn't afford to. So I saved my wages, and we lived on Marilyn's wages, and that was about 15 quid a week. And within a couple of years, we'd got £650. So we used to go to estate agents and offer £650. If it was 600, we'd offer 600, 550. Yeah, it wasn't. This is another thing that it taught me. It's not the value or what somebody's asking for, it's what they'll take.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you've got plenty of money, go, I'll take that. If you haven't got the money, offer them what you've got. You never know. Well, this person obviously took the money. It was £1,075, and they took the money. So I think it was an inheritance, and the person didn't live in Peterborough. It'd been empty a few years. It got no electricity. It got gas lamps. It got no electricity. It got no toilet. And it got a toilet in the yard at the back. It got no water. The water was a pipe outside. So it was, you know, it had a roof on, and it was watertight. So that to us was one of the good things. You know, it's because we had looked at houses that got air conditioning for £450, but it hadn't got a roof, you see. So, and I wasn't as good as that. You know, I couldn't put a roof on. But
well, I was going to say, your dad was a very skilled carpenter as well, wasn't he? Which helped.
He was. He's very good. Although he didn't like me buying that house because he said, you are going below your standards, Neville. And I go, Dad, I haven't got a standard. I said, you've got a standard because you built yourself up into, got a nice bungalow into a nice area. And this area where I was moving was 5 minutes away, but it's chalk and cheese. I said, Dad, I haven't got a standard. I've got to start where, like you started, you know, and he started in rooms, rented rooms. And yeah, he got over it. He just told his friends that I'd got a house, but he forgot to tell them where it was.
I was going to say, so you started off pretty well. You bought it, you did it, you added a lot of value. And was it not worth over £2,000 quite quickly?
It was worth £2,100 when we moved into it in 1970. We got married in 1970, July the 4th. Yeah. So, and then we moved into it, and it was done. It was. And then it was worth 2,100 because not long after that, we got a semi-detached house with a garage space, front garden. But again, it was unmodernised, hadn't had anything done since the 20s, 30s, whenever it was built. And so we went in there. It had a bathroom, but again, it had a copper boiler that you had to put the water in the copper container, light a fire underneath it,
really?
and then attach a pump and pump like crazy the water up to the bath upstairs. And this copper was like this big, the bath was huge. You get an inch of water in the bottom, and it'd be cold, it would. And I'd be shoving lighting the fire, and we'd put anything on the fire. There was nothing in our dustbins, only bottles and cans. Everything else was burnt. It was. So it was, you know, pretty tight times, but it was good. And we did that a few times. We did.
But then where it gets a bit interesting, so you've obviously, like, you've developed your skills, you considered yourself a bit of a builder at this point, and then I just need to look back a bit. You got to the winter of 73, 74, didn't it? You were getting a bit more confident by this point, so you brought this property, put £7,000, everything you'd accumulated up to that point on this property. You were like, right, I'm going to take the roof off, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then the recession hit, and you didn't have the money or the expertise to do it. And it kind of backfired a little bit at that point, didn't it?
It did, because you see, I was 23 then. And at 23, you know everything. I was 22 when I think we started that project, and I knew everything. So you couldn't tell me nothing, you know, I knew it all. But I didn't know anything at all. And I was working for people then. And then, of course, I thought I was a builder at the same time. And I just ripped it, as you say, I ripped it to pieces. Couldn't live in there. So I lived in the caravan in the garden with heaps of rubble and rubbish about, because I hadn't got the brains to stack it nice and neat or get a skip. And then I got fired, no redundancy, because I'd not been there long enough. And then I queued up on the welfare at the dole office, stomach churning thing. Oh, I hated it. So embarrassing, because in those days, you felt like you were the lowest of the low. You were scum. You were nothing if you hadn't got a job. And I remember I went to the dole office and or the workplace, and they said, you've got to go and sign on. I said, I'm not signing on with them. They're just a load of scroungers. And she got really mad with me and brought me right down to earth, saying those scroungers are just like you. They're not, they've had jobs and they're decent people. That put me in my place and realised I wasn't better than anybody else. And I sat on my bike round the corner from the dole office, and I watched 20 people go in and 20 people come out. And I thought, I didn't really take any notice of what they was wearing, only the amount of people. And I thought, nobody's in there. And I rushed through the doors, and there's 2 lots of swing doors, and I rushed through because I was so embarrassed. I thought, I'll be in and out before anybody knows, nobody else did. I hit a wall, 2 rows of people from the entrance door up to the counter. And I had to stand there, feeling embarrassed with my head down. But I think most people did. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't speak to anybody, and it was awful. And then I prayed to my God to give me a job. But I disrespected my employers before. I took their time, their liberty. I wasn't as good as what I said I was when I went for the job, because I wanted friends in these places, and you gravitate to the people who are doing the least work because they have got the mouth. And if you try to do any more work than they did, then in those days you was you wasn't part of the team. So so anyway, my God, who I was praying to in the dole queue, thought you'd better stand on your own 2 feet. And it was payback time. I had to change my attitude.
Was it a defining moment for you?
Sorry?
Would you say it was a defining moment for you, standing in that dole queue?
It was a defining moment for me when I asked for £2 a week more, because we hadn't got enough to feed ourselves. And Marilyn's auntie used to come and give us some food, and my mum used to feed the baby with some rusks or whatever, bits and pieces. It was. I asked for £2, and they said, if you want that money, you need to have another child, and then you'll have 2 children, and then you'll get the ladder on the dog. You get the points. And I couldn't believe. And that's another time when I was so angry, and I was so sad that the system didn't recognise what was going on, and angry because the government couldn't look after me. My employers, well, they couldn't look after. They didn't want to look after me, obviously. And I, in a fit of rage, I said I would look after myself. And the boy on the other side of the counter, and it was a wide counter, and I never realised why the counter was so wide and so high, because it was like I was there and he was up there. He must have been on the box, and it's because how you feel, the anxiety, and the problems what you have when you're begging for money. You just want to get hold of the person and pull them across the counter, but of course you'd end up in jail. And that's why they have these wide counters. So, and they have screens now. So, so I signed myself off, because he said, "Do you want to sign yourself off then? Big boy, and I go, "Yeah, I do." And I'm thinking, you're not, without me, you haven't got a job. You're going to want to keep me. You want to give me another £2, and of course he didn't. And I looked at him and he said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "What do we do now?" He says, "Do what you like." He says, "You don't have to come anymore. That's it." And then called next. And I went out and cried. Oh, I thought I'd let Marilyn down, and that's basically, you know, what I thought. And I just went home and I just said to her, yeah, well, Ashley, it's fine. I'm going to start window cleaning tomorrow. And that was it. And we went and got a 37 piece of scrim and from the haberdashery shop, and walked to my father's house and asked him if I could borrow his ladder. And I went and knocked on the next door neighbours the next morning, and I said, I'm window cleaning. Do you want your windows? And they slammed the door in my face. I couldn't understand why. But years later, I realised they could see us in the back garden in a heap of rubble in this caravan, and it's like we'd brought their house. Our house was like a quarter of the price, so I demolished it virtually. And it must have been the next door neighbours. They wouldn't have been able to sell theirs because we brought their house down as well. You know, the value. I mean, I don't know where my head was.
Yeah. But I remember you saying, I think this story is great because I think there was another window cleaner at the other side of the road, and you'd started picking up a few jobs, and you were looking at the guy across the road, and he's literally done a whole street, and you'd done 3. You're like, where am I going wrong? And it turned out you've been doing the frames as well as the glass. You just presumed you did the whole thing, but actually you'd started to build up quite a bit of goodwill by doing that, and people could sort of see your work ethic, and other opportunities started sort of presenting themselves off the back of that kind of almost happy mistake.
I've never cleaned a window, and I thought, well, a window is a window. It includes the frame, but window cleaners only clean the glass. I didn't. And I knew then a woman came out and said, Neville, you're the first window cleaner for 20 years that I've had that's cleaned the window frames, and it looks like my house has been painted. And I thought, now I know what I'm doing wrong. Yeah. But you see, I made up my mind to have a window cleaning business and not a window cleaning round, because I was desperate for the money, and I didn't like window cleaning, but I told myself I did. And this is something I learned very, very early on. If there was I'd got a job for the day, and it's window cleaning, and I hated it, and I have to say to myself, I love this job, I love this job, I love this job. This is the best job out. This is the best job ever. Because I hadn't got another one. So I was all looking for a better job.
Yeah.
But having the sense of, if I believe, if I can believe that this is a good job, I'll do the best job I can. And then, you know, naturally, I got other jobs because people would go, oh, can you paint my house, you know? And now you've done the frames, I can see it needs painting, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And about 3 weeks after we started, and this is where the book title, The Answer is Yes, Now What is the Question, came. About 3 weeks after we started, I was up a ladder cleaning the windows, and a woman come out and said, Neville, can you? And I go, yeah, I can. And she says, I'm not asked a question yet. And I go, I'll do anything at all. And in my mind was, as long as it's not immoral or illegal, because my mum would say, the Lord Jesus will punish you.
Yeah.
if you do anything wrong. So, and if I heard that once, I've heard it a million times from my mum. And so she kept me on the straight and narrow in, a lot of ways. So I went on to do another jobs. And of course, if you've got 8 or 10 hours a day to do your work, and you've got a better paying job, well, you leave the other jobs at the back of you, and you keep on going and going. So painting and decorating, and then small building works. This is over 3 years. So by 3 years, we was employing 6 people, and we was doing small extensions.
Yeah.
So every single day, and I do say, when you start your business in the morning, whatever time, and then leave it at night, when you leave it at night, that business must have changed a little bit, because if it hasn't, somebody else's business has, and then you wonder in a few years why your business has failed and theirs has and you don't even know who's your competitor is. And in the 80s, when I started listening to tape recordings in my car, motivational tape recordings, then every day when I went home, I used to ask this question: have I bought my business today, or have I sold it? Meaning, have I put value onto that business? Is it worth more tonight than it was this morning? And in that case, I'm selling the business. And if I hadn't put any value on it whatsoever, and I'd gone backwards, then I was buying it myself. And who wants to buy your own business?
Yeah.
So mentally, I ask myself every day, am I buying this business or am I selling it?
Yeah.
And that helped, tremendous.
I was going to ask you actually about the personal development side of it, because I suppose it's just common practice during this time, but I'd imagine it was a little bit more out there back then, wasn't it? A bit less accessible, maybe a bit less mainstream.
You couldn't find much out there at all. Books, there was hardly any, only real technical stuff that was a job for me to read. But I did get a couple of books, and the first, you could get records, a record, the vinyl. So I got this record. It was in aid of the soldiers. I heard it on the radio, and we sent away for it, and it was called Just for Today. And you can find it on YouTube or whatever. You can find, if you just type in Just for Today, there'll be like lots of poems and different things. And I learned so much from those. I did. And then 1980, we used to have reps come to the shop, and they used to be on a circuit. So they'd probably be away from home a week or anywhere between a week and a month, and they'd stop in hotels. And because we were so busy in the shop, I always used to say to them, well, come on at 5 o'clock and we'll go for dinner, and then we'll do the business, I'll give you an order then. And then one rep, he said, oh, I'm booked in at the whatever hotel. And I said to him, well, why? Come to our house and stop in our house. And so a lot of the reps started to come to our house. Well, they were saving the money on the hotel. And we had longer to talk to them and find out about who was doing well in the trade and what they were doing. I never used to say, I never compromised them in the way of what turnover are people doing. I just used to say, who's the best in the trade, for your products, and how much more have I got to buy off you to be number one? And they used to say, oh, you like, if there was Tesco's, you've got no chance. So I used to rule out Tesco's and Mothercare and people like that, but independents. And they'd probably say, well, you've got double to go. Now, my aim, I had a goal, everything was set in goals. So I had a goal that rep would be the best rep for their company, because I would make him the best. So he's telling me I've got to do double to become number one out of all the independents. And I'm thinking, if I do that, then he will become number one salesman in his company.
Yeah.
And so it's a goal within a goal, a win-win situation, which spurred me on to sell more of his products. But we've got like so many reps. I was like, just a minute, I've got to sell everybody's products more because I want them to be the best. So therefore there was the enthusiasm to push the business, keep pushing it and push it to the edge every day.
I love that.
Not from me.
Slightly, because because obviously kiddie care, you ended up selling it for like 70 million. It was absolutely phenomenal. But the way it came about, you were I didn't realize this until I was delving a bit deeper for tonight, and you'd not had any intentions of setting up in retail. You were just looking for an office for your property maintenance business. And when you secured it, I think, was it 1977? You secured it, it was bigger than you'd anticipated. You had this extra space. You only had a budget of about £300. You think, well, what can we get for that? And you thought, second-hand prams, they're big, they're cheap. We can, and literally, like, to say where it ended up, it wasn't even a focus, was it? But you've always just been very good at seizing opportunities when they come to you.
Yeah. We focused on today. If I was painting a house, I'd be focused on that house for today. And if it looked like it was going to rain, if it was changeable weather, then I'd leave all the eaves, I'd leave the inside porch, I'd leave everything that was in the dry until it teemed down with rain. And I'd be up the ladder underneath the eaves, painting the eaves while it was pouring down with rain. No other painter and decorator would do that. They'd be sitting in their cars. Mm-hmm. So I used every hour, every minute of every day to progress, whether it was that or whether it was the shop. I remember in the 80s, just early 80s, I worked it out how much we was getting. Now, not what we were living on, because I could live on next to nothing. We still got the mentality that we might, if everything goes wrong, we're going to live back in a 10-foot caravan. We knew we could. So we was living to that kind of situation we was. So it didn't take a lot to live on, but we was, if you had a 5-day week and 8 hours a day, we was getting the equivalent to £129 an hour, and that was a lot of money in those days, and probably £120 or probably £125 was going back in the business.
Yeah.
We live on a £5 an hour, £2.50 each, right? Yeah. And I thought, my mind, with the ADHD, you're always pushing yourself, and my mind was always racing, and I was thinking, right, and I started to listen to the American tapes, Millionaire Roundtable. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Yeah, this rep come to my house one night, right? We left the shop and he didn't know where to go. So Marilyn went in the car and I went in his car, and he started his car up and there was these tapes and it said something about motivation and money and that. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, I'll switch those off. I said, no, leave them. And it was his son-in-law who worked for Allied Dunbar. And I think there's an insurance company. And it was like the people who sold $1 million worth of insurance a year got into this $1 million round table. And I was absolutely hooked on this tape. And when we got home, after about 20 minutes, I hadn't spoken to him. I was fixated on these tapes. When we got home, he said, do you want to borrow them? And next month, I'll take them back. Well, we went out for dinner, and everybody went to bed, and I stayed up and I listened to all of these tapes till 8 o'clock in the morning. I did. And then the next day I went out and I bought some blank tapes. I think it was 12 blank tapes, and I had 2 tape recorders with the microphones together, and the next day I taped the tapes. I did. And from then on, my car was my classroom. Mm-hmm. And to be like 20, 30 minutes away from your work was great, because you could learn so much and implement that in the day, and then learn as you come in back home, and then tomorrow you'll implement whatever you're learning. And And so my car was my classroom for 30 years. And somebody stole my car a couple of years ago. And it's a Range Rover, and they stole it. And there was like all my credit cards in, because it was like my office anyway. It was like a tip. And it was like my credit cards were in there, money was in there, and there was about 500 discs in there in a big pack. So they stole it from Peterborough and it ended up in Leicester. And I said to the police woman, she said, "Oh, did you have £1,000 in new £10 notes?" I said, "Yeah, I did." I said, "Is it there?" She says, "No, the packet's here." And I said, "Is my CDs there?" She said, "It's littered. Your car is absolutely littered with these CDs. They took them all out." And I was looking for, I don't know, maybe I was looking for music, but there's no music on there. And I said, "Thank goodness for that," because I said they're worth £1 million to me.
Yeah.
If they'd have dumped a car which was worth 100,000 and took the CDs and spent a bit of time listening to them, they could have bought the car every week. You know, it's like they obviously they didn't understand what value was in those CDs. And I suppose what I'm trying to say to anybody who's listening is education. Although I didn't get any I didn't get the education what the educational authority had to offer. I got a lot of different education, but education, if you are something that you passionate about and you can absorb, then spend every minute you can.
I think you said something that was quite poignant there, though, because it's not just I see a lot of personal development junkies at the minute, people that go from book to book to podcast to course to seminar to seminar, which is great. I'm hugely invested in my own personal development and education and stuff like that. But you said a key word, and that's implementing, because there's no good reading hundreds of books. One of my mentors had said you'd be as well to read a few good books hundreds of times until you're kind of implementing what you've learned and actually putting that into action.
Yeah.
It becomes meaningless, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking in my book here. I'm laying in a pile of books. There's a picture of me. I should know what number it is, but I don't. So I say books. There's nothing any good in books. Whatever, and I've read hundreds and hundreds of books, and there's nothing any good in them at all, unless you take what you've learned and you implement it. Mm-hmm. And that's the key. And so I get so enthusiastic. I'll read a book in a night. Mm-hmm. And when I say a night, I mean a night, because look, I've got no watch. It doesn't mean anything to me. And then I implement what I've learned. And so, therefore, without implementation, you're not going to, and you learn when you start implementing it, you'll go, well, that's crap. That's no good. So you don't read that book again. But if it, I'm talking about if it works for you, mm-hmm. in what you're doing, but you've got to implement what you learn. And so, I implemented at school what I learned. I learned that on a Wednesday, we have reading. Being dyslexic, I didn't even know what page we were on, let alone what sentence. Yeah. I couldn't focus, but I knew I'd be beaten. On a Wednesday, I'd be beaten. So what it taught me was, apart from the teachers were cruel to the children in their care, it taught me not to be at school on a Wednesday afternoon. Mm-hmm. That's what it taught me. It taught me truancy. the teacher taught me how to be a truant by beating me because he had got no understanding that my brain could not. And it was so simple. Like you could put, you see, they used to put stuff on the blackboard and you could read it because some other kid had read it, and you'd go and copy the other kid or copy the teacher. All they've got to do is put 6 words on the blackboard. The cat ran after the dog, and then the teacher goes, the house is on fire. And now you read it, Neville. And I'd go, the house is on fire. Well, they'd have known straight away that I couldn't see what it was. I was copying what other people was doing. And that brings me on. So, you know, that taught me a great deal in school of not to go. But you know, it is implementing things that you learn. So I implemented that, and you wonder why kids are truants now. Well, what is behind it? You know, there's something behind it that's making them like that. So
it was, because I know you say that your dyslexia, your ADHD, it's helped you. It's almost given you an extra level of determination to really sort of go out there and succeed, and it's helped you think outside the box. But I'm guessing for a lot of years, it was pretty horrific. At what age did you start channeling the negatives in your life and start using those as tools to really go out and not just succeed, but to get a level of success that most people wouldn't even be able to comprehend?
Well, I suppose there's a thing about searching for being in your element. And I was in my element when I was 12, because I worked at the Peterborough cattle market at the age of 12 on a Saturday. So I was in my element with all the animals and, doing things there. And I never wanted Saturdays to end. I didn't, and Sundays, it was horrendous, because Sunday night I would be, I would be ill, physically ill, and tell my mother that I'd be ill because tomorrow morning I weren't going to school. And I would bite myself. I would, nowadays, with this internet and stuff, I could have done some real damage. But, all I could do was fake illness. But my stomach was churning, my stomach was ill, I was feeling, I was being sick, but I used to bite my arms and say, a dog's bit me. And my mum never believed me. She said, she used to say you're a liar and you've done that yourself. But there was no question of, why have you done it? What's the reason? Why are you? Because I used to be so ill in the morning that you'd probably tricked her, that she'd say, all right, oh yeah. And my brother or sister would say, yeah, well, he was ill last night, he went to bed early. And that's not like him. Well, I went to bed early because I was setting the scene for the next morning, because I was so frightened of going. And then 9 o'clock would come, and all of a sudden, my stomach ache would go, and she'd say, you little sod, you're not, tomorrow you're going. So, oh dear, yeah. So I forgot what line of question we was on.
So it was horrific. Like I can't begin to imagine what that was like growing up. But at some point you've channeled that, and you started really using something that was really negative, haven't you, to almost get for your success.
I think I was channeling it then, because I was thinking, how do I get out of school? Yeah, there's a reason, and so therefore, when you get a bit older and you leave school, and when you start working for yourself, then that channels that thinking is all the while being channeled into your business. You know, it's like, well, if I can get my ladders on the roof rack and get to the place before it gets light and get my ladder up on the window just as the dawn is breaking, then I can get more work done. I can probably get another 2 or 3 houses in. And it's like, I've scared the shit out of people when they've opened the curtains just as they're getting, and I'm there with my paintbrush.
There's so many things that could have went wrong with that situation.
Yeah. I never used to, I tell you what, I never used to look in windows, because you can clean a window or you can paint a window and you can be this far away from it and you can not look in it. You can be looking at what you're doing, but never look in a window, because I made the mistake when I first started. I made the mistake of looking in windows.
Yeah.
It's a bit curious, you know, what kind of paper have they got, you know, and all their furniture and all that kind of stuff. And then I looked in a window one afternoon, and there was this guy having sex. The thing is, he was on his own. I never looked in a window again.
So you managed to master the art of looking without seeing then. A bit like doctors do.
Yeah. So, you know, you take each day, you learn things and you take it, and you learn good and you learn bad. And long as you drop the bad and carry on with the good, you know, you're either going forwards or you're going backwards in life. And it's like, if you're always going forwards and backwards, and sometimes you do have to go backwards to go forwards.
Yeah.
And very often it's like starting with a derelict house, making it good, and enjoying it for a couple of days before you put the for sale board up, and then move into a derelict house. You have to go backwards, because if you don't, you'll live in a terraced house with no front garden and no garage all of your life. And we didn't want that, although there's lovely neighbours, there's no problem, you know, but we wanted a bit more. Marilyn wanted security and a lot of it. And I was there to get what she wanted. Now, over the years, I went too far, and she said, you know, it was like, I would say, if you want to be secure for the rest of your life, and you really do want this, then you've got to go through. And I say, we was all born like with going into a fun fair. You know, you got your tickets for your rides, and through life, you have to give your tickets over and go on the rides. And some rides are very nice. But if you go through a fun fair, you've always got the house of horrors. And if you want to get out the other side of the fun fair, you have to go on every ride. And one of the rides is the house of horrors, or the ghost train. And unfortunately, it's not a nice trip sometimes, and you have to go through it if you want to get to the other side. And this is how I describe it and say to Marilyn, if you really, truly want to be really wealthy, to get over the situation like your mum and dad had, and the situation that you don't want to be in, I'm afraid you know, you can't stop now. You've got to keep pushing, push, because eventually you'll get there. But if you stop now, you know, you can forget it. You've got to keep pushing.
Yeah.
And I push too much sometimes.
I was going to say, I suppose one of your greatest attributes might, you know, like a lot of entrepreneurs' greatest strengths can sometimes be the weaknesses. But you'd went on to build kiddie care and build your property portfolio. you'd worked your way up. You know, there's a lot of stuff happened in the meantime, but you'd bought one of, if not the nicest house in Lincolnshire. You know, you're all self-made. You're starting to get the trinkets of all your hard work. Your swimming pool and all of this. You had staff, and you had in your home, in your personal life, as well as obviously.
You read the book,
business,
haven't you?
Pardon?
You've read the book.
I've been doing my research, but because this is it. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people give up before they make it, 100%. But when you make it, like, I mean, that it really is a roller coaster, isn't it? In 2008, the crash came, and you went from living the high life to living in your office, one of your offices, for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And that, I'd imagine, from I don't know, like an ego point of view, when you're so used to providing for your family, providing for your staff, living a certain life, I'd imagine that must have been really hard. I know you describe how hard that was. You see, you were living off, alcohol a lot of the time. You were just under a huge amount of pressure. Yeah, well, you got to have some basis.
That wouldn't be a Peroni. Yeah, that would be whiskey.
but to have had it all, to got so close to losing it again, and then to rebuild, I think it's quite remarkable. But can you talk us through what happened during the crash? What led you to moving into the office? How that impacted your because it's not just the business side I'm interested about, really. It's how did that impact you as a family, and how do you regroup? Because okay, you can sort of almost say a bit sort of joking, yeah, you were relying on alcohol and stuff like that, but the reality is you were still performing at a very high level, and you clawed your way out of that situation to go on and sell kiddie care for 70 million only a couple of years later. So exactly. It wasn't like you just sat on your laurels and accepted your fate. Not for a minute.
You'll have to probably remind me of the question in a minute, because I'll just go back to the beginning, what was on about putting your ladder up or climbing the mountain. You choose what wall that you put your ladder on, or you choose what mountain you climb. And I've seen so many people over the years, they're climbing this mountain, and they get up there and they look around and there's nobody there, because their family or their friends decided they climb the other mountain across the valley. They climb the other wall, and it's like very early on, I think you have to be very tough and very blinkered, and you have to decide what you want as a group, either mainly two people, what you want. And Marilyn wanted what I wanted, and I wanted what Marilyn wanted. So therefore, I think it was a combination that, we decided to get married. We decided we would be, together. So why not work all of our lives? It doesn't matter whether you're working or not, but be together. So what wall are you going to climb, and are we together on that? Because she was a hairdresser, and I go, look, I can't do it because, I just can't do it. I don't want to do it. And then it was like, well, window cleaning, well, that's kind of a neutral thing that you can hold the ladder or wash the rags out, whatever, and help me do that, and make the invoice sit in the car and make the invoice. So it's a combination. I could get it quick, do the jobs quicker. Mm-hmm. So if you've started off in one mind with, singing off the same hymn sheet, I think they say, mm-hmm. then it's easier as you're going up, because we'd had 30 years in business when this happened, when the crash came. We'd done our due diligence, we'd done everything that we needed to do, because we'd been through other scenarios, other crashes, not as bad as that, but other. So we thought, well, if you have a retail business that's bringing in money every day, we've got the nursery side, equipment. So that was one thing that probably couldn't fail. Then we've got the children's clothes. That was another department. And then we've got the toys. Not all of those could crash at once, surely. And then we've got the internet. So we've got, 3 lots of products selling in 2 lots of ways. Then we've got the building business. We was buying and selling, we was flipping, we was renovating, we was building, commercial and residential. So we got about 9 different streams of income. Mm-hmm. And surely we would be all right. But when the bumpers hit the wall, when it crashed in 2008, every one of our businesses, every stream of income went flat. It did. Mm-hmm. And we had, I think, about 14 million was in debt at that time. And then we'd sold bits and pieces that we could. And it come to a point of there was only one thing left, and that was the house. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, it's Marilyn's house, because, girls have houses, boys, just, have cars and things. It was like, I said to her, I've got a really good idea, because we was losing about £250,000 a month at the time. And it was like, and this was only for a short period, but it was like, what the hell do we do? And I said, there's only one thing left. We've done everything we can. There's only one thing left, and it's to sell your house. Mm-hmm. And she just looked at me, and tears in her eyes, and walked away. She knew we'd got to do it. Mm-hmm. Because in 1981, when we bought the house, there was a recession on. The people had been in there too long. Well, it was a shell, and they was living in the pub down the road, and they was renovating this, and they kept it too long, and they went bust, and we bought it off the bank. Mm-hmm. And it's the same scenario. If you leave it too long, I'd left it 6 months too long, because it was worth £2.5 million. And when we went to the estate agents the next day, he said it's 2.25. I said no. I said, it's dropping like a stone. We don't want to be behind it. We want to be in front of it. And he says, well, put it on at 2.1 then. I said, no, I'll put it on at 1.75. And he'd go, well, you're crazy. I said, no, I need the money. He says, you absolutely, anyway, we had, I think, 3 nosy people around. We wasn't there. We couldn't be there when anybody went around the house. It was just impossible. So we had about 3 nosy people. Went round, and one other person, and they bought it, and luckily they sold their house that week, and for a cash buyer moved in straight away, and within a week we was out. And just to put you in that, another idea of that is like, we've lived in that house for 26 years, 8,000 square foot in a parkland setting, 8,000 square foot, 8 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, indoor marble swimming pool. That cost 70,000 in 1979 when I was putting it in, just a swimming pool. So this is tell you this, the quality of the house. They come over from Italy, the people who did the marble, and they brought everything over and did it. And we left all the furniture in, and we left everything in, and we would just moved out with our suitcases. We could not cope with anything. We was fighting fires on a minute-to-minute basis, and we couldn't even think about putting stuff into storage. A lot of it was bespoke. We had a 48-foot conservatory, and one of the tables in there, the table in there was about 15 foot long, with loads of seats around it, and it was always bespoke made for the house. So what was the point of taking it? And we couldn't get our heads around it. So we went out with the suitcases and never looked back, and just went into the office, and that was a horrendous time, because the council found out some friendly person who knew we was living there, inform the council within about a week, and they come give us 21 days notice to get out. And I said, I'm trying to save 120 jobs. You know, it's the worst recession ever. And you know, it's like we're go bankrupt. You know, we're just trying to save all these people their lives, their livelihood, and you're trying to chuck us out. And she said, well, oh, we've got a camping car in the warehouse. And she said, and by the way, I know you've got a motorhome in the warehouse. You don't think you're going to go and live there because we're coming to check it out. So they knew everything. And I said, so you're throwing us out on the streets with the drug dealers who are coming up and down this road every night. She said, that's nothing to do with me. I don't deal with drug dealers. I deal with people like you, like squatters. You know. Anyway, they didn't get us out. They didn't.
How did we get around it?
Well, there's a technicality, you see. It wasn't, it couldn't be rated as a home, and you couldn't rent it because you had to go into the car park. Car park was locked, but then you had to go through the shop and then get in the lift and go up to the offices, and so that it couldn't be rented. And there's some kind of technicality. Whereas, like, if you've got a 24-hour process, so 24-hour for computers, maintenance, security, fire, and all that kind of stuff. Remember, this is a massive, massive building. This is, and it's 125 people worked in there, and is internal was about 160,000 square foot. So it was like you needed people there 24/7. Mm-hmm. And so we got a city planner involved, and they couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't put us out. And I said, I don't sleep in here, you know. I only 2 or 3 nights a week. And they said, well, where to go? I said, well, we're here. And they said, well, what do you mean? You only sleep here 2 or 3 nights a week? I said, that's all the sleep I get. I said, you try saving a business as big as this and trying to sleep as well. It's impossible. So
so the technicality was just basically working 24/7. Wow.
Yeah.
It's not so. Did it affect your relationship with money? Because you've went from being like a multimillionaire to losing it all to then pretty quickly afterwards, if you sold it in 2011, becoming like selling it for 70 million. I mean, talk about
talk about that. Yeah, because it was like when we had the house in 1973. That was £7,500, and I got a 3,000 mortgage on it, something like that. By the time I'd ripped it apart and the recession had come in, it was worth about £1,500, about half of the mortgage. So the £4,000 that I'd had in there, that I'd made from the other 3 houses that I'd renovated and sold, it had all disappeared. But when we come out of the recession, I spent a few pound on it, and I'd got more skills. I put it all back together, and we got about £12,000 for it. So it went from like 1,500, and I could then buy half a dozen terraced houses with it if I wanted to. So it's the same scenario. So when your back's against the wall, you can, I suppose, break up. You can, it can fall apart. But also there's this bond where we was responsible. So was responsible for 125 families, and that responsibility becomes the highest priority. Mm-hmm. So therefore you group together and you do everything that you possibly can. So what we did, we looked at everything. We started to manufacture our own goods and bring the prices down and we sold more, but there was better profits on it because we was manufacturing stuff to our own specification. So that took, it was in record time. It was like 3 months from making the decision to the first wagon coming in, and then we was having probably 10 wagons a day with all this new stuff, and it was just absolutely incredible. It was. We turned that business around, and then there was, within 2 years, there was 30 companies after it.
Wow.
20 from the high street. It was just incredible. And that was, everybody wanted to boost their business. They did.
So what made you decide, sorry, Neville, what made you decide to sell it in the end then? Had it been a little bit tainted after what had happened in 2008, or was the time just right?
We had got, everything was geared up for 200 million turnover. That was our goal. That was our aim. So the warehouse, the automation, the internet, the staff, every process in the building and every process with the business was going to go to 40 million pound, 200 million turnover. We was doing 40 million at the time. So we got everything working and we got it sorted. But to go from 40 million to 200 million, you have to have your wits about you. You have to be strong. You have to be gelled together as a team, and it took its toll. Everything through the recession really took its toll, not on us but everybody, and to go forward to the next stage is a massive commitment and a massive amount of time and energy. And we'd sold 3 nursery businesses before this, from 1980 and then to 1986, and we'd sold 3 anyway as going concerns. So we found that a mum and dad business, like we were, and we still were when we was 2011, it was like you got a little shop. So you had 1 staff, and then you had 2, then 3. And then you'd move into a bigger shop, and then you'd need 10 staff, and some of those 3 couldn't cope. Well, we've been used to just the 3 of us, 4 or 5 of us, and then they couldn't cope with 10 staff. And then you'd go from 10 to 25, and then you'd go into a bigger shop, and it was 50, and you'd lose a lot of staff, or you'd lose your key people because they could only come up to a certain level, and that's what they was comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And we was driven, we were focused, we knew what we wanted. We wanted to push that business forward. When you're talking to somebody who has got their own wants and needs and dreams and their own family, and they come at 9 o'clock and they go home at 5, that's their life. Mm-hmm. And yet our life was business and building. We didn't know at the time. We didn't want a big business. We only wanted to sell the next pram that was going to be sold within a 4-hour radius. So it was like people would come for 4 hours, so we will have every pram there is to be sold, and that was what our goal was. And it was like, that kind of stuff is not inbred in other people, mm-hmm. because they don't want it, mm-hmm. and so they don't see the rewards. And Marilyn had always said, I want to be secure. And it's like there's that underlying fear that we didn't want to end up with nothing. But if we had, we took a chance in 2008, 9, 10, because we've got that responsibility for 125 staff. We knew But if it all went wrong, we could go and live in a 10-foot caravan and it wouldn't affect us. And I could start another business straight away. But you've got 125 people who probably don't think like that, who've got a different agenda. So that gives us the power in our brains, our minds, to fight. What can we do? What can we do to outwit this dreadful thing that's going on, the recession? How can we outwit the recession? Okay, so everybody does a McLaren buggy XTS at $99.99, and everybody does a Britax car seat at blah 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 whatever, and everybody KPIs. Everybody knows a brand and the value. And at the time, none of the brands wanted you to undercut. So there was another war going on. There was 3 wars. There was the recession that was fighting. There was the internet war, because a lot of people didn't want you to put their goods online. And then there was a price maintenance war. And we was getting blamed for everything. And it was like, because we were the biggest. Now, do we want to go from 40 million to 200 with all this shit that's going on? From all sides, you know, like from the government, from the suppliers, you know, from everybody. And it was a time when this guy had been courting us basically for 5 years, saying, I've got somebody who wants to buy your business. I've got somebody who wants to buy your business. So every 3 months he'd ring and say, I've got somebody who wants to buy your business. And I'd say, no, we don't want. 5 years before that, we was building this new place. And then 2 years before that, it was in chaos. But 3 years before that, we was trying to get it to work. And a year before that, there was a lot of technical stuff, and we was altering the way we was doing the selling and manufacturing and stuff. And then just one day, I'd had enough. I should have been in bed. I was ill, and I was in the office, and I took the phone call. And it goes, "Hi, Neville, how are you? All right? You know, how are you?" And I just thought to myself, I wish he'd fuck off, because I just can't stand it, you know. And I was polite. I'd said, "Yeah, Mike, we are. Yeah, we're okay. And what are you doing for Christmas?" And blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And he's going, "Yeah." And then he said, "Just remember, Nev," he says, "if you ever want to sell your business, I've got somebody who wants to buy it." I said, "Mike, I want to sell the business." And he said, and there was silence. He'd been talking to me for 5 years, and there was silence. And he said, what did you say?" I said, "Yeah, I want to sell the business." Now I was going, do I want to sell the business to myself? Has that come out of my mouth? I had got to make a decision there, because Marilyn would never make the decision. She couldn't, because she was too wrapped up in the family and the staff and all the stuff that goes along with it. And I knew that she couldn't cope the same as me at the end of the day, because we've been through so much shit. And we'd had a court case, and and then people were stealing our name, and we had to fight them and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, you know, everything was bearing down. And I just go, yeah. I said, and he says, "Why?" And I said, "Because everything is working right. I can honestly say to the next person, you can take this from 40 million to 200 million, because the facilities were there and everything was right, and we'd done everything up to that point, and I could hand it over to somebody who could do 200 million. And I said, it's right. I said, a year ago, you know, I wouldn't have sold it because it wasn't working right. 2 years ago, it wasn't right. 5 years ago, it's too exciting. We was building another one." I said, "You know all the reasons." I said, "But I don't want to take it to the next level." And well, he come down the next day. We signed the paperwork. We spent £30,000 on due diligence on ourselves, which I was really so pleased that we did. It made the process so much easier, and that took a few weeks to do before we actually marketed it. So we set it up, right. It's like I should have told you, when we sold the house that we'd been in there for 26 years, the drive looked very tired. It was worn out. And though we hadn't got any money and we needed it, I spent £5,000 on getting a contractor in, and he laid new tarmac and what they call golden gravel on there, and it looked immaculate. When the electric gates opened and you drove down this drive into the house with the big pillars and the magnificent house, and you don't want anybody to look and say, oh, well, this is a shit drive, there's all stains over it and it's tired, now we've got to do that. And it's first impressions. Somebody told me, like in the 1970s, something like that, I was working with a gang of guys, and somebody told me they'd been moving house, and so remember, Neville, if your house is your picture, when you go to sell your house is a picture, your garden's your frame, and you present your garden as a nice, beautiful garden. And then when somebody's walking down your garden path, they don't say, oh, bloody gates, falling off its inches, and this, you're presenting it so they don't think, and they go into the house, and they make that decision. When speculate to accumulate, that's what I learned at 13 years old. Somebody told me that a guy called Arthur Dye, I think he was a cousin of a cousin or something like that, second cousin. And he had a brand new Land Rover, and he'd come up to his house. We were stopping in Leominster for a weekend, my mum and dad, and my mum and dad, I must have overheard them saying, how can Arthur afford that new car? Because he came up in it the next day, this new Land Rover, and I said, Arthur, how can you afford that? That come out my mouth. I was 13, and I thought, I shouldn't have said that. But it's my mum and dad that I'd heard. And he said, Neville, now he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to my mum and dad that stood there, because he knew that I wouldn't have been intelligent enough to think of that at that age. He said, Neville, in life, you have to speculate to accumulate. In other words, your dad's not speculated to accumulate it, and I know there's ways pissed off with me having a new.
But Neville, I think it even goes deeper than that, because I remember you, I don't know if it was a podcast that you were getting interviewed on or something like that, but you were referring to, I think it might be one of your commercial units, and you've been down, it might have been a mechanics or something like that, and the guy that owned it had said to you, but what are you kind of doing down here, Neville, with all the money you've got and things like that, you're still sort of operational. And you turn around and you look at him, you're like, how do I get to your level of success, and what are you basically still doing, boots on the ground? And you'd said, well, for a kickoff, clean up all the shit, clean up all the rubbish, look at all the rubbish you've got lying everywhere. And the guy was kind of a bit taken aback, and he was like, well, you wouldn't do that. And you said, well, actually, that's where you're wrong. I would do that. I wouldn't have that shit lying there. I wouldn't have my customers seeing that. I wouldn't want to be seeing that every single day. So you're right in exactly what you're saying about the speculate to accumulate, but it's like, is that how you do anything, how you do everything mentality, isn't it? And even though I'm sure you're a master at leveraging and outsourcing and things like that, you're not scared to get your hands dirty. You don't put yourself on a pedestal. You're very much just roll your sleeves up and get stuck in when you need to do it.
I need the exercise. That's what it's. Yeah, yeah, because I do. We was out on something like a 6-acre site a few weeks ago, and we just sold it, and we'd had all these houses demolished, and then it had been pouring with rain And after the people demolished them and took them all away and leveled the site out, there was all of a sudden, it's been pouring rain for a couple of weeks, and there was loads of polythene that it just bit, and brickbats and stuff that shouldn't have been left on site. But of course they couldn't do it. It's all in the mud. So the buyer said, well, the surveyor said, oh, that's got to be cleared. So 4 of us went one day, and while we was waiting for other emergency jobs to come in, and we cleared one massive truckload of rubbish and 12 tons of brickbats. And yeah, that's what I do, you know, because it's a goal within a goal. I want to present that. I want them to be pleased with what they've bought, and it's healthy, you know, it's good. And I think, well, that's all right. I can go home and have a drink now.
How did it feel in 2011? I suppose with the benefit of hindsight, you made that decision, which must have been quite difficult, albeit, you know, it was the right one at the time to sell your baby, to sell kiddie care. How did it feel kind of watching it from the sidelines as Morrison's kind of ran it into the ground after all your decades of hard work, basically?
Well, I was angry and sad. You know, once again, you know, it could have been so wrong. It was, because when you make a business and it's going really well and you've got it right, and then somebody comes along and they alter the system. So you work years and years and years, 34 years, to get the system working like clockwork. Then they come along and they don't tweak it, they destroy it. Mm-hmm. Because they take no notice of what you've done in the 34 years. They don't even ask you. They think they know better. So they went from 125 staff in one shop that was doing 83% online to 10 or 11 50,000 square foot shops with 1,000 staff, and they went like in a year. It takes 2 years to train somebody to become a primalologist, and you can't take half of the staff away from a shop that's doing 40 million, whether it's on the internet or because it all went from one place. Mm-hmm. And you can't take half the staff to go to 10 other shops to train all the other people. Does not work, because one, they're not trainers. Mm-hmm. There's like 2 or 3 trainers in the whole of the place that we had, and they knew what they were doing. You couldn't take those 3 trainers and train 1,000 people. And you've got to be, when you went into kiddie care as a fresh person, you was put with a buddy for 6 weeks, and that buddy was responsible, you wasn't. And then they become responsible after 6 weeks, and that buddy was responsible for the department under manager or assistant manager, who is responsible to the department manager, who is responsible to the overall business manager. So that's, everybody only had one boss. Mm-hmm. And that's how it went up the chain, and that's how it was controlled. And so it was easy, but there was always somebody there micromanaging the new person. Well, you can't send a few people in and micromanage 1,000 people. It doesn't work. And also there wasn't the business for 10 or 11 50,000 square foot shops. It just wasn't the business. You could do it online, and it's proved even now more and more that we was in the forefront of online retailing. We started in 1999, and when people woke up in 2000 probably 5 and realized there was this thing called the internet. We was already 5 years in front of them, but it was 2 years in the process of we're 7 years in front of people. And they seemed to be waking up one morning, like 200 or 300 shops going, what's this thing called the internet? Why has our business gone down? And this is why I say your business is going to change every single day, just a little tiny bit. Because if you don't, in 7 years' time, you're going to be saying, what the hell is going on? And we were 7 years in front of everybody. So all the time, I was looking 5 years ahead. What's the customer going to want in 5 years? And how are we going to do it? And what we're going to do today. And I will tell you, we made a lot of mistakes because we were too quick with a lot of stuff. And you can spend a lot of money on technology that as soon as you get it, it's been leapfrogged to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got computers. So I've got 4 in this office in our home, and downstairs there's probably another 4 in the office I've got down there. Then we've got the office at Stanford, it's got loads, and they've got loads of wired computers. And then you go to, I think it's like India or somewhere, when they didn't have any, and they've leaped over and they've just got laptops. So you can work for a long time on getting something, and then realizing the day you launch it, it's old hat, or you don't even launch it because there's something else on the market which is made up, out of date. So, but you have to do these things.
I was going to say, you mentioned about constantly looking into the future. So I'm mindful of being keeping you. I could keep you talking for hours.
Well, what's the time?
It's 9:30, but you don't have a watch, so it doesn't matter.
I don't care. I don't care.
I keep talking all night, but it's just you and I were talking before we went live about. I mean, am I right in saying you're literally doing or you've got in the pipeline like a million square foot of development? Yeah. You're about halfway through that at the moment, and obviously we've just had this pandemic. You've just done three super offices in Peterborough, commanding like the highest rent. You're just about to start doing one for 16,000 square feet. And I was watching one of your other interviews, and I know it's an overused word at the moment, but you've got to pivot. I mean, everyone's been a bit blindsided, but straight away you were just like, well, clearly, I think it's, the demand for office space, the way that we're working is going to change. You're just like, oh, well, it's fine. The car park, I'll be able to command just as much money for a car park. And you're just constantly having to stay ahead of the curve. But what with regards to COVID, I'd imagine we're playing at quite a small scale, obviously, comparatively. So I'd imagine there's pros and cons of every which way, because the more you've got, the more staff, the more responsibilities, the more commitments. What's happening with your developments? What do you think of how the government have handled it? How do you think things are going to change moving forward? Any insights?
Well, since the house arrest, and it's what it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In 1939, well, I read in 1939, the Germans went into Poland and they had a lockdown, and they put people into ghettos, and they was under house arrest. And lockdowns usually happen in jails, don't they? They lock the jail down. So it's an interesting word, this lockdown. And then they told people to stay in. So there's a lot of people out there would say that it's the biggest crime that's ever happened. So there's people out there who say, like, the New World Order has got their hands on this, where they've been trying to do this since the 1920s, and they want to finish it up by the 2030. That there is no money, only credit cards, and then they'll be able to decide what you buy. the inoculation of the birth control. Did somebody say it's for COVID-19, which is like a cold, but when you get the inoculation, certain people won't be able to have any babies anymore? World order, world control. I'm not saying it, I'm just saying a lot of people have said it. So to us, just going back now to us, we have been through a lot of recessions and a lot of stuff, and we've built our business constantly, and we've built it on common sense. And the grass still grows. If you've got a lockdown and you're house arrest, the grass still grows on business parks. The roofs still leak, the drains still block. The security is needed more than ever because most of them were empty, and we've got 150 or 160 commercial, and sites, so 160 with the building sites. I think I did about 8,000 miles in my van, because we was out day and night. So our lads didn't go on to, what do they call this? Furlough. Now, our lads work, instead of 8 to 10 hours a day, 12 to 14 hours a day. So, it's, that was normal for us to take whatever it is in our stride. And then you've got to decide, do you like living where you are? Because if the house arrest comes again, and just think, in Peterborough, there's about 5 roads that go into Peterborough. So if they block those off, then there'd be about 150 million pounds worth of what used to be mine is now somebody else's. Because if you say you've got a house or a caravan at the seaside and you can't go there, and you've got somebody living there, whether it's the government who's put them there or they've just broke in, what can you do about it? I'm rambling now. So I think a lot of people, no, I don't think, I'm just saying that there's other people's opinions that a lot of people should be in jail for this. And like tomorrow morning, a lot of people would say that you should throw your mask away and just get back to work, because there is, you've got to realise that 650,000 people are supposedly die of the flu each year, and up to now, this year, nobody's died of it. So there's no statistics, but there's people died of this this other kind of flu, COVID. So I'm just saying what other people are saying. But at the end of the day, you've got your life, or people have got their life, and they have to choose what it is. And it's like when I was on the dole, this furlough is like when I was on the dole. There's just enough for it to survive, and some people got comfortable on it. But it doesn't do anybody any good. And you see now, a lot of people, a lot of my friends who've got staff, their staff doesn't want to go back to work.
Yeah,
they're comfortable because they take the dog out for a walk first thing, and they go and put their dinner on, and then they're washing, and they this and that, and they do a bit of gardening, and they go shopping and that, because when they go shopping, the COVID keeps away from them. But if they go to work, they might catch it.
I know a lot of people like that.
So it's like, so it reminds me of the frog. You catch the frog, you put it in some cold water, you put it on the gas, and it just warms up, and the frog says, "Oh, this is nice." But if you put it in boiling water, it would jump out. But if you put it into some cold water and turn the gas on, and the heat comes up, and the frog's cooked without it being known. And I think a lot of people would say it's the same scenario. They're being cooked without them knowing it. So, just from a common sense point of view, what I've seen, some of our tenants have cycle shops, and they've been booming.
Yeah.
But you can go to a cycle shop and you can get kitted out with all clothes. You can go to Marks and Spencer's, but you can't go and have a coffee because they've put clothes in there. Not because of that, but they put clothes in there because they think we can't open the clothes shop, but we can put clothes in the coffee shop. And then you get a friend of mine who's got 150 shops and he's lost £22 million because he's got clothing shops. And I'm saying, look, mate, what if it was me? I'd have sold Mars bars for like £49.99 and pints of milk for 299 quid, and you get a free pram or free outfit. Because the law doesn't seem to know what it's doing. And you said, what do you think about the government? Well, who's running the government? The government, what you see on telly, or somebody else? Because you'd never run your business like it, would you? You wouldn't say to somebody, you stop in your flats, and I'm only saying what other people have said. I'm not saying it. It's not me who's saying it.
I love that.
Because my family would say to me, don't voice your opinion.
Marilyn's in the background going, no.
These are the people have said, like, why would you quarantine 3,000 people on the ship and push the air conditioning round when you've got half a dozen people got it? Why don't get them off the ship? Oh no, let's give them all it. Yeah. Let's give them 1,000 people in flats living next to each other, going crazy. Don't let them walk on the beach where there's fresh air. Oh, but they can go into the park 1 hour a day. Then you've got to choose the hour where they're not going to get the cold. Is it cold? Cold, COVID, whatever. Yeah. So, and now we've brought up a generation that's been, well, from birth to like 15-year-old, that they've been now brainwashed for the last 100 days to not to react to each other, not to go near their grandparents or anybody else, to put a mask on. I'm glad that I was born in 1950. I think we've had a very, very good time. And for my great-grandchild who's just been born, and my grandchildren, a lot of people would say, I wouldn't want to live in their era of brainwashing and being injected with stuff that they don't know what it's going to do. Anyway, if you get injected for 2019, what about COVID 20, 21, 22? Because I'm only saying what other people have told me.
I think it's going to be around no, I do. I think it's, I mean, mentally, we're hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We're sort of preparing for a second national lockdown in winter. I think everyone's had their challenges, haven't they? We've got 3 young children, and the first 10 weeks we're keeping as positive as the next person. Really, we're really sort of doing the best we could. But when you've got a 2, 3 and a 7-year-old gradually losing their will to live and their behaviours deteriorating because they're lacking stimulation, things, it gets challenging, as it does for everybody. But in terms of the business stuff, what do you see? I mean, as you know, more wealth was created after the Great Depression than any other time. I'm quite excited at the opportunity that potentially, I suppose the same for any recession. I don't mean specific to COVID, but as you know, your business has got to survive in any economic cycle. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for people at the moment?
Well, we've always took our luck as it comes, and we fit ourselves to it, as you know, because if I don't get that car park well, I'll probably put containers on for storage, you know. So there'll be something. But if I was probably looking for a business, I'd look at what's going on at the moment, and people seem to be very settled in their house. Now, I would say, what's the good points and bad points of that? Well, your kids will probably eventually drive yourself mad. And I don't think there's been a child died of this thing, so they're pretty immune to it. And psychologically, they'll be a lot of them will be disturbed if they don't get back to normality in school. So they should be at school or not. You know, they should either pull all the schools down, or they should put them all back together, and people should be there without social distancing. Anyway, so therefore, if it was me, and I'd say people won't be happy at their kitchen table in the long run, or on their coffee table, or in their bedroom. This is what I think. So if I was starting a business and it was specifically what's going on at the moment, I would be going to design and build pods that come on a lorry, from anything from like 8 by 8 square feet to bigger ones with toilet facilities and stuff in, and get a crane it over the house into the back garden, because I think there'll be, the more this goes on, I think there'll be lots and lots of people who go, it's nice working at home, but I am claustrophobic. I am looking at these, you know, my kitchen or my lounge, and really in different parts of the day want to be different environments. Yeah. And I'll be doing that, and I think yeah, so that's one thing, one idea of what I would be doing. But I mean, there must be hundreds of ideas.
Yeah.
You know, I've got the camping car. You know, you could actually make a same size camping car, any size camping car, and make it into an office. So you can travel. You know, there's lots of things that you could do, but there's lots of businesses that will be made out of this, because people want to eat. I mean, our local big restaurant, the George, I believe it is, that we would have been there this week and last week and the week before. It's just opened. It's got a tent, but these people are advisors now. The waiters invite, and think, are the people who are making the food advisors? No way. You know, I've been a chef. You can't do it. So therefore, you are putting your trust in them. Why is the waiter coming up to you in PPE like a surgeon with a thing on, when the person in the kitchen could have coughed in it? You know, these are the risks you take in life. You know, I'm not going to go and be served by somebody in a space uniform. I'd rather stay at home. So
we've said the same thing, actually. It's personal preference, isn't it? But certainly for us, if it comes down to it being mandatory to wear masks and stuff at restaurants, we would just rather stop in and cook, because it's not really why we choose to go out to kind of, you know, and that's not, like you say, I'm not trying to get political about it, but for us, it's just not, you know, and the children feel claustrophobic and things like that. And we've tried to keep things as relatively normal as we can. And I don't really want to take them on aeroplanes while we have to wear masks and things. So, yeah.
I've said for the last 50 years on a lot of aeroplanes, there is times when you do need a mask. But, you know, to have it compulsory is... I don't think it's a good idea, but I don't think the masks do a lot of good. In fact, they started killing people people have started to die, not in this country, but in China, through wearing masks. So there is, there's another wave of people thinking a different way. But I've worked with a lot of people over the last 100 days, mostly self-employed, and there's only one of them wore a mask. Because I think most people know that when you've got a mask on, majority of masks, if somebody else coughs, it will go over the mask, it will go through, go in your eyes, it will go everywhere. But when you have got a mask on and you cough, that probably would protect somebody else. So you don't wear a mask to protect yourself, you wear a mask to protect somebody else. But if we're not all wearing masks, then somebody's going to be breathing on somebody else, and it's going to go through through the mask itself. But you do a risk assessment and a method statement. Mm-hmm. That's what you do, and that's what I've done all my life through business. Risk assessments every minute. Didn't do a very good risk assessment on saying it was somebody else who said this. Risk assessment is, am I going to that concert? Right? And with 20, 30, 40,000 other people. And the method statement is, well, I'm either going to wear something or I'm going to keep away. So you have to make those choices. Risk assessment and method statement. And was we born to have something over our mouth? And have you ever seen it in thousands of years? If there's asbestos or dust or what, you've got a mask. But there'll be more people who die through car accidents, people splattering into the front of buses, because in the winter, if you ever put a mask on, I mean, I have on a building site loads of times, and your glasses steam up, you can't see where you're going. So there'll be a lot of accidents, and they'll go, the death toll's gone up because people, have been wearing a mask and they can't see. There's people killing themselves because they're mental, who've got mental problems. There's people dying because they should have gone to hospital. Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell me this. Why do they have 2,000 bed hospitals? Why can't the motorhome show go ahead in Birmingham? Because it's full of beds. Apparently, nobody there. Same was in Excel. Why did they shift all the people they thought they'd got this thing over to the big hospitals, and then let the surgeons do their heart surgery, the transplants, the whatever it is? And why can't you go to the dentist? I mean, I did say to the dentist the last time I went, why don't you wear a mask? It's, because you're over the top of me, why don't you wear a mask? And they go, because this was just before the lockdown, just when the week when they were starting to talk about it. And I'm saying, shouldn't you be wearing a mask while you're looking down my throat? And she says, I suppose so, but we haven't been told to do so yet. And this is a difference between being self-employed, running your own business, because you're the one that makes those decisions, because it's mostly common sense. And I wouldn't think that if I was, and this is why I used to get into a lot of trouble when I was employed. This is, I would think, well, this is common sense, we should do this, and then get into trouble. But other people, usually employed, have to wait. It's the law. They have to wait for somebody, the super person, the supervisor, to tell them to wear a mask, because you might die. Oh, right, okay, I better wear it. That's it's a funny world. It is.
It's a very funny world. It's a very, very funny world.
And retailers are killing themselves, killing their own businesses. Yeah. Because now I find that not particularly the person who owns the shop, but if it's a chain of shops, and so there's people have been left to their own devices, and the shop assistants have all now got power. And they've got the power to say to a customer that they've never had a power before, stop, put that crap on your hands. We don't know where it's come from. We don't know what's in it, but you've got to put it on your hands and rub it in. And the person says, well, I've done that 6 times in 6 shops, you know, and my hands are sticky. No, they've got the authority to say, you've got to go one way around the shop. And they're using that authority, and they're scaring people off. Who wants to go to a shop where you've got a shop assistant that's jumped up and go, wash your hands before you come in here, put your bags down there, go round one way. I went into a garage the other day to pick up my new car. So it's got exit only, and so I always go in the nearest door. So I went in the exit, and somebody says, can't you read? I go, you haven't got my book, have you? Showed in my book. They said, you're a rebel, you are. I go, no, I'm dyslexic. Yeah, so you've got to adapt. You have. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of adapting. It's very interesting though, because I took my daughter with me, my eldest daughter with me to go and get a friend's birthday present last week. And we'd been in one shop, and then we'd literally just sanitize the way in, sanitize the way out, went to the next one, we'd not touched anything. And of course, you know, the shop assistant stood there saying, you've got to sit. And I, as an adult, I thought, it is what it is. There's no point. I've got to go in. I've got to buy the present. It's, you know. But my daughter, she just basically said she used to love coming into town with me. We used to do it quite regularly. She's basically said, no, you know, she's just. So I think like for the retail industry, I think, yeah, a lot of people, well, they haven't returned to the high street since the shops have opened. The confidence isn't there. People are still shopping online. But I think for people like us who might have went into the town centre on a Saturday afternoon just to browse, just to go and spend 30 quid in Costa Coffee or one of the local coffee shops or what have you, you're not going to do that because it's not a pleasurable experience. You do it out of necessity, that's fine. And it's personal choice. Some people, just speaking to my sister-in-law today, she was saying she would go and wear a mask going out to the pub. Whereas for me, like, I just couldn't be bothered with that constantly. And like, if my husband and I don't get to go out very often, I kind of think I'd rather just stop at home and make a few cocktails and cook something if we're going to be stood with masks on. And I know a lot of people will think that's a bit controversial, but it's our choice not to go out. I'm not saying that what should or shouldn't be in place, but I'm just saying it's up to us whether or not we want to go and do that. But then you want to go and support your local pubs and restaurants and stuff as well. But I think that's going to be increasingly difficult.
It is. It is. People say this 6 foot distancing, but then it's been known that if you cough, it goes 23 feet. So you've got to be immune to it. And the instead of all this doom and gloom for 100 days on the television with this media people, nobody said, well, this is what we suggest. This is how you get your immunity up. You know, and
nutrition. Where's all the support on that?
Yeah, and they reckon 1/3 of the people have had it anyway, like well before this all happened. Mm-hmm. And people like me, who's over 70, should be indoors. I've done 8,000 miles in my van since the lockdown, and I've not been, you know, face to face. Well, I was face to face with some police. Right, none of them, there's 8 of them, none of them wore masks. All of them was huddled up, you know, and they seem to know something I didn't. So, yeah, very interesting times. And if you are, if you've got your own business, then I think you will, you won't be, well, hopefully you won't be brainwashed.
I don't think
but unfortunately, it's dividing the country, it's dividing the people in the towns, it's dividing and it's dividing families. And that is very, very bad. And I don't know anybody who's died with it unless they've got something else to go along with it, and they've put it on the death certificate because they've got that. But I do know quite a few people that's committed suicide.
Well, that's very interesting. Domestic violence, suicide, mental health.
And have you noticed how aggressive people are getting?
Mm-hmm.
Because
It's all over
there's
again,
a lot
isn't it?
more aggression.
Yeah.
There is. And that's not nice.
No.
It isn't. So, we're in for a changeable season. And I think if somebody said, come on, we've made a mistake here, it's not as bad as we portrayed it to be. And we've had to keep the figures up to prove ourselves to be right. There's got to be a bit of humility somewhere and go, we made a mistake.
I don't think that will be.
No. So I just keep on driving my van, keeping myself to myself.
Well, this is just your friend Dave. You're just repeating what Dave said.
I'm only repeating what my friends.
Well, Neville, we've been on 2 hours. It's been, you know what? This has been my longest interview. I feel like we're going to have to do a part 2.
Because I'm slow and I ramble. Sorry about that.
I've absolutely loved it. I've got pages of notes and stuff. I've still not even chatted with you. It's just the story. There's so many stories. The book's absolutely fantastic, and you've got another one due out. Before we wrap up, you want to just tell everyone about the book you've got due to come out?
Well, we had a party last night, and I mentioned you, and they said, "What are you going to talk about?" I said, "I haven't got a clue. No doubt Ellie will think of something and guide me." So my book that I've got to get off my arse and do this, because it was like 3/4 of the way through when this lockdown, and I went on, and I'm on to revamping my website. I've actually got my timeline done, which is 70 years of timeline. So I've got that finished. I'm on to doing the timeline for the book and bits and pieces. So NevilleWright.com. I've got a book coming out, and I'm embarrassed to say that it was supposed to be out about a year ago, and then I promised that it would be out 6 months ago. It's called The Fleas That Jumped Higher, and it is a really poignant situation at the moment. It's about people with dyslexia and ADHD in school, really, and people in the society that is being brainwashed. And then this comes up, and it kind of all fits. I should have launched it a year ago, because I'd have been ahead of the curve. But I think this has given me some ideas to add on to it, because
I think so.
I was brainwashed for 15, well, up until I was 15, by people who didn't understand. There was no understanding that children had anything, a problem with this thing called dyslexia, and ADHD. So I was running around like a little flea, and jumping about. But I mean, most kids start off as fleas. They jump and they hit if you put a flea to a flea circus, and I've not had any experiences, but I've been told by a friend of mine that you catch fleas, you put it in the jar, and you screw the lid on. If you want fleas for the flea circus to be trained, which is a metaphor for life anyway, and the fleas keep hitting their head. Wow. On the jar. After a couple of days, they're not that thick, because they're jumping but just short of the jar. And then you open the lid and they can't jump out. And that's what happens to kids. They're put in school, they're jumping about, they're told to sit still, don't look at the clouds outside, don't have a vivid imagination. Forget about your imagination. Will drive you into the ground, because when you come out, you've got to have a certificate. Oh, that's all gone. this year's all gone, isn't it? We'll do the certificates on what you've done over the period of time. That's which I should have done the last 40 or 50 years. Anyway, I don't know what you said. Did you say round it up?
We were talking about your book. It's going to be an awesome book.
Yeah, NevilleWright.com. Get the book. The book's good. I know. I've cried over every page. Yeah, it's the answer is yes. Now, what is the question? Sorry about swearing in it, but it's just how I felt at the time and life, and yeah, there's a good bit. There's some personal bits in there, which is very upsetting, and there's some and the bit about the going to court, which was, I had a nervous breakdown, I think. So, you know, if it doesn't make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and if it doesn't make you both, I'll give you your money back. Well, it all goes to charity anyway, so charity will have to give you your money back.
Yeah, take it off. What charity is it going to?
We do mostly it's Lender with Care. It's been going for 70 years, and I've helped about 18,000 people in I suppose deprived countries. And when I say deprived countries, a lot of the money, you see, the idea is you lend the money for free, and then they pay you back over 24 months, and in that time you're recycling the money all the time, but a lot of it doesn't come back because there's wars and famines, and you know, you've got to try and get people on their feet, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to do that. But when there is tragedies, earthquakes and monsoons and wars, and rebels and things, you know, people have to run, and you know, we are in a fortunate position. We're not running in this country yet, and I don't know where we would run to if we had to. So yeah. So anyway, it goes to that. There's other bits and pieces that I don't mention because they're just things that happen, and you try and help. You know, so the money goes to good causes.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's brilliant.
So buy the book.
Buy the book. I bought the book. So everybody needs to buy the book. And when you finally get your finger out and we get this second one launched, we'll need to do this all over again.
All right. I look forward to it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Neville.
Everybody's out there. I really, really appreciate you listening. I hope I've given a few nuggets of information to help you on your way in business or in life.
It's been absolutely phenomenal. There's been so many golden nuggets. You've just been so open and honest. It's real and raw. That's what we love about you. So thank you so much, Neville. And thank you for everybody who's watched us. See you later.
Bye-bye.